Global Socialpreneurs is brought to you in part by Positive Talk Radio, KKNW 1150 AM in Seattle. Check them out at www.positivetalkradio.net.
Welcome to Global Socialpreneurs, a one-of-a-kind talk show showcasing expert social entrepreneurs. Learn their stories and their secrets to creating a sustainable impact. Now, here are your hosts, social entrepreneurs Ann Scottlin and Shametria Gonzales.
Welcome back to Global Socialpreneurs. We are so happy to have you with us again today. We've been interviewing some really incredible social entrepreneurs this month and heard some phenomenal stories of the difference people are making in the world. So I want to get started right away and welcome back Shametria Gonzales, my amazing co-host. So welcome to you, Shametria. How are you today?
Hey everybody, I am doing so good, Anna. I'm just great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the nitty-gritty of this guest that we have.
Yes, me too. Craig is amazing. He is Craig GOLDBLATT from the UK. He's an impact coach, a philanthropist, a transformational speaker, and he's spoken to audiences all over 5 continents for over the last 20 years. And he loves what he does. This has allowed him to just meet so many wonderful people, from the Angkor in the Amazon to the Moshu in Burkina Faso. And his life's intention is to inspire people to love themselves deeply, which I just love so much. I love that so much. So without further ado, welcome Craig.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are.
Yeah, right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. So lovely to have you with us today from the UK, where you're getting a little bit of sunshine, as you said, backstage. So glad for you. I know that you like to get the sunshine.
Absolutely. And I'm actually apparently getting a tan being in England, which is like amazing.
I thought that when you came on, I'm like, where's he been? Because he looks really tan.
England.
England of all places. That's really amazing. Amazing. Well, I'm so glad you're here today. And I'm just so excited to have 2 of my favorite people in the world in the same virtual room right now. Craig, this is my co-host, Shametria Gonzales.
Hi, Craig.
And she is a phenomenal woman, a survivor, a social entrepreneur, a leader, and a national and award-winning speaker. And it's just a pleasure to have people in the room who care so deeply about humanity and are here to look at how can we make an impactful difference and how can we make that as sustainable as possible. So I thought it might be fun to start today with a conversation about our definitions about social entrepreneurship. Maybe run through them. I'll share mine, then Shametria, and then Craig would love to hear yours. So in a nutshell, I see social entrepreneurship as a way to monetize a social impact project, to take a social initiative, run it specifically with a business plan, not dependent on strictly nonprofit kinds of donations, government support, but more of a structured program that can create a sustainable impact over time, can pay its staff, and or can put the money back into the program. And I just love this for the cutting edge person who wants to take it to the next level. For those who are already doing it in the 21st century, I think this new model is going to have a tremendous impact because it works at all different socioeconomic levels, which I'm really excited about. So over to you, Shametria. Share us just a little bit about what gets you excited about social entrepreneurship and what that means to you.
So social entrepreneurship, to me, the root word is social. That came about with social norms, social media, social proof, right? Everything has to do with the interconnection of internet. That means that now that we have been interconnected, we can all come together and have some type of space to be able to connect on a deeper level with people around the world. And that also gives us the ability to get to know everybody on another level. So to me, the word social before anything always brings about connectivity, connection, and bringing us closer. I believe we're all connected to one source, and that there is one race, the human race. I believe that entrepreneurs that have been 501c3, 501c4, LLC, S Corps, all of these things are to serve. And when you serve, I think social entrepreneurship, bringing us all together, gives us a platform and a space to be able to serve everybody and to be able to travel the world. Like, I think of social entrepreneurship as connection to the actual business of people. And when you do business with people, not business with business. So having people at the forefront of that entrepreneurship, connecting us together. And then, like you said, resource-wise, it's not about grants and hedge funds and, scholarship, like all these things. It's about connecting resources and money together in order to be able to create impact. So I know that's a lot of it, but just basically people, connecting us to people with people and solving the problems of this world at the forefront.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh, I do. Craig, do you want to respond to that and share your own?
Well, I was thinking as you ladies were sharing I feel it takes me back in history, social entrepreneurship, because we have come from a place where genetically, ecologically, environmentally, we are pack animals. We have survived and grown and fought and loved and created within community for 200,000 years. And as long as, if we believe in Darwinism, for at least for 200,000 years, we've lived and existed in this format, in this way in which we can share with each other, and somebody realizes their talents and their skills and is able to then be able to pass that on to their neighbor and vice versa. And through all different cultures and creeds and environments that we've had in our history, whether it's the Turks or the Romans or the Greeks or whoever it is that we've learned from in our sense of self, our psychology, our understanding of business and charity and to be a neighbor. And, we've always worked best when it's about being social, as you ladies say, and being able to create an opportunity for us to be able to grow and thrive together as opposed to apart. And what's happened, of course, starting, I guess, in the Industrial Revolution, is we've created an environment of control to a certain degree, whereby people have suddenly, and I'm not clever enough to work out where this fear actually began, but we have created an environment, it seems, where maybe through war or wealth or whatever it was, or greed, we've connected to an inner dynamic that I suppose is in most or all of us at some level an addiction, that we have to be better than somebody else. We have to climb the ladder on our own. We have to survive. And we have to look after and protect and control our environment so that we don't become poor or unhealthy or exposed or vulnerable. And so that's created this disparate environment whereby, even though we should be much more connected with all the resources that we have on and offline now, actually it's going the opposite direction. And so many people are finding themselves lonely and feeling vulnerable. And so what you ladies shared, and what you're doing in the world is much more than vital right now, because it's scary to think that we're going to become even more disparate. But to come from a positive perspective, I think ladies like you who are rising up and saying we have to find a different model, a different way in which we can do business and live, then I think the future's bright. And I think social entrepreneurship is an opportunity for us to get back to helping the person next to us.
I love that so much. Shametria, any thoughts?
I'm sorry, say that again. My bad.
Oh, any thoughts? Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I love it. The last part, you got me. It's about people. I believe the world will be a better place if people just become better versions of themselves. I don't even want to say better people, but if we all work together and evolve and just put us first, we'll get there. And then it starts with the belief. So if we do this work and it makes you believe, that is where the root of everything that is in the vision of anything that God gives us, it starts with belief. So thank you for believing. And that gives us, it boosts us up to be like, yes, that's like one more chance.
That's exactly it. Is that when I've studied the psychology that I have, what I understand to be true is the foundation of everything is what we believe to be true, isn't it? Is our belief systems. And if I may, Anne, can I add one more thing just quickly?
Please. We're just going to have a great old chat, so let's enjoy it.
So,
yeah.
So we talk about these primitive environments, and I say that, you know, because I think it challenges me that we think that the primitive ways of life have gone, and there's not much to learn from how we lived 2,000 years ago anymore. But when I spend time, you mentioned earlier, and the Moshi communities in Burkina Faso. So Burkina Faso is a country in West Africa. It's sub-Saharan, it's landlocked. And when you look at the Human Development Index laid out by the United Nations 10 years ago, at least, Burkina Faso was the second poorest country on the planet. So from a financial or physical perspective, Burkina Faso is living in a huge amount of extreme poverty. And it's, over the last decade, it's got worse. It's at war. It's got so much famine. Al Qaeda has moved in, and there's lots of hijacking and difficulty there. And you know, from a physical or an environmental or even a commercial perspective, it's in a mess. Okay. Having said that, from a spiritual perspective, when I've been there 7 times, and I'm very lucky to have visited these people so much, and they literally will die for each other. So, you know, I met a guy in the north of Burkina Faso, and he didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. I knew that he was a friend of a guy that I knew there. And he gave me a big bear hug, huge guy. His name was Jacques. And he gave me a big hug, and I said, I love your suit. He had this enormous multicolored suit. And wow. 2 days later, I traveled to the city of Burkina Faso called Ouagadougou. It's the most amazing place. And I was 150 kilometers or miles, a long way from where I met this guy. And a chap showed up with a moped with a black plastic bag. And inside that bag was his suit. And the guy on the moped said, he wants you to have his suit. And the guy didn't have a penny. I mean, he's in extreme poverty, this guy, and it's his only suit. He wanted me to have it. And this is how, and I said, I can't accept this. And he said, you have to accept it. And the reality is, this is their daily life. They share what they have. And somebody told me once, a good friend of mine called Dominic Keohane told me, the difference between giving and generosity, is you give what you can afford. When you're generous, you give what you can't afford. And social entrepreneurship, to me, real social entrepreneurship is where you're being generous, where you work with each other to be able to give what you can't even afford right now, but you know it will work out for that person. And that's what we're getting back to. So these ancient ways of living there's wisdom in it.
There is. Wow, that is so, I'm never going to forget that story, Craig. That was
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Hugely impactful.
Yeah.
And so beautiful. And I think, you know, as entrepreneurs, which many of us are or also have been, we know the sacrifices that can take to get a business going.
Yes.
But, you know, depending on, you know, sometimes the financing is different. Sometimes we have help where you can get personal loans. You never know. But you know, there's still this element of risk. But there's a difference in the sense that you feel like if it all goes down,
yes,
it's just you that's involved in a way. And to me, what is partly the beautiful drive of socialpreneurship and the reason to build it right from the beginning is because it is about others. It's for others. It includes others. Will they all work out? Of course not. But when the plan is laid well, when it's designed to run like a business, when that social impact is the absolute purpose of the business instead of just monetization, the bottom line, the entrepreneur gets rich, the shareholders get rich. You still have to make money, but it's designed with a purpose in mind. And I just get so excited about this because I think, wow, what if a whole new generation of young people could understand that, what what entrepreneurship was, say, in the US, especially in the, and I distinguish that slightly from the small business owner, which the US has always had and has always been specifically unique in that way. But the entrepreneur of the 80s, 90s, 2000, early 2000s, if going forward, you could be like, yes, I'm going to start my own company and it's going to not only make money for me, but it's going to be a company designed to specifically impact someone else and be profitable. What a new world we could create. I said this recently to someone else. I said, you can be a social entrepreneur and wash clothes in the river. Because you can go door to door and say, hi, I know someone else probably washes your clothes, but I'm giving 30% of all my income to this local orphanage. And if you would like to help contribute, I would love to help you to do your laundry. I charge the same as everybody else. Well, pretty soon you've doubled your clientele because people want to be part of something that's making a difference, especially in their personal community and environment. And you're making more profit personally, and you're giving 30% of that profit to support the orphanage in your area. That's a social entrepreneurship. People of any economic level can do this. So the more we're blessed in the places that we happen to live in Western countries, even the more resources we can have. But it's so simple is partly what makes it beautiful. And partly why I have my Socialpreneur Mastermind, because it's like, how do you not only learn from the best of the best as we go, but also how do you help people found their social impact project wisely, smart, work right from the ground up. But Shametria, you have been very active. Tell us a little bit about, or review for us again to share with Craig, your social entrepreneurship and especially, your work with the House for Grace and then other things you're working on.
Yeah, no. So as you were talking about that, so one of the things that the human does, it's called the law of familiarity. Anything that becomes too familiar, we change it because it's human nature. We become desensitized to it. So now that's why every decade you have a new culture, you have a new trend, you have a new, right? So there's time frames. And I think that we are all getting away from those old models of the rich get richer and richer and the poor stay. It's not working. And as inflation comes and as all of these other things come, this just piggybacking off of what you just said, this has to be done. It's not that we are, this is like, so for our survival, stuff like this has to come into place, right? Natural selection. We have to naturally select things that are going to keep us going as a nation, as a community, as a country, as a world. So this it's there. God gave you this social entrepreneurship gift and the gift to be able to help others, to be able to find funding and make this happen because the world needs it. So that's the bigger why. But for myself, rather it is community organizing. I had to think about, sometimes you're put in stuff and then you realize when you look back to reverse engineer it, that it built you for who God called you to be. So the first thing was community organizing. The second thing was I worked with women who had been sexually abused. I worked for the Louisiana Foundation Against Sexual Assault. I worked for the foundation, the New Orleans Family Justice Center for women who had been domestically abused. I had worked for all of these different organizations that had to do with social justice reform, that had to do with changing people's lives. So over the course of 10, 11 years, I gave my life to service. And so because I did that, I really didn't know how it was going to work, but I knew that it gave me purpose. And with that purpose, I was able to have some type of like abundance to pull from. I never got tired. It never felt like work. So now, as I go into being a speaker and I speak on these experiences, I'm just speaking my life's experience, my testimony, my truth. So whether it's Home for Grace, where we help survivors of trafficking, where we, I work with other people who are experts in their field. My partner, Sophia Willits, my partner, Jason, all of these different people. I'm going to lunch today with people that are fundraisers. They actually raise huge hedge funds for organizations like us. They're real estate investors, right? So all of this comes together in order to serve people. And so whether it's, Unleashed to Speak, I was a woman who told my story for free for years, and I raised millions of dollars. And I did not have any money myself. So now, because of that, I realized that other people in the society are doing the same thing, particularly survivors of human trafficking, like myself. We never got paid for what we did. So at least we can get paid for our story. That's my experience that allows me to do that work. And then the reason we want to get homes for these women, I never had a home, which is why I went out into the streets and these people were able to get me. Right? So it's all of these things that we've been through that allow us socially, that allow us to come together to say, this is my why. That thing you said, people do care, but you can't pay them to care. You only share yourself, share your story, share your energy. And then once they feel that, they know the difference between real and fake. So our model that we're coming up with social entrepreneurship, with being able to give back, and it's not about not-for-profit, it's about people. And when you care about people, the amount of money you make is in proportion to the people that you service. So when you put service before that, then you make it social. That means social means everybody gets to know about it. It's like socialize, right? It's the internet. It's the me speaking on stages. It's that component of it. It's just sharing the frame of what it is that I've built and put out for the world to be able to utilize as a business or as a platform or as a entity for you to serve. Maybe you're a billionaire and you don't have the time to create that, but that's why people like us do. And that's why, and because of the story, that's my diploma on the wall, right? Because of my story, that's my why. So people are tricky about who they give their money to, but when you have survived it, now you're qualified to help others that are still in it. So I know that was a little lengthy, but it's just, I'm so passionate. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Wow. Craig.
Yes, I'm just thinking about your story. And so what came to me is there's all of the people that I know like yourself who are doing amazing work in the world. I don't suppose all of them, but a huge percentage of them have suffered, have had difficulty. And there is something about the fact that when we're willing to stand up and be counted, like you are, Shametria, and to say, I've lived this and I've experienced it. You speak with your truth and you speak with the truth. And I think courage can only come from difficulty in some kind of way. All these people that have, it reminds me of Viktor Frankl, which so many of us have studied. This guy who was captured by the Nazis in the 1930s and sent to the death camps for 4 years, and at the end of the Holocaust was liberated and went on to speak and write the most amazing books. And he took his suffering in that way and said, because of this suffering, this must never happen again. And because of this suffering, we now have purpose in a way. And so it's just an amazing story. And so what I think would be wonderful for me to understand more of, Shametria, is, and I'm sure you've soul searched a lot around this, is what is it in you that has allowed you in the past to say enough, or this has got to stop, or I'm going to speak about this, or I'm going to make sure this never happens again? Or so if you can bottle that, if you can work out the magic to be able to allow, which I know is, from what you said, is your work and your purpose, is to inspire all of these other ladies and gentlemen who've been through the same thing as you have, to be able to say you have a voice, and you have, and it's finding, I guess, those moments and allowing people to share their story and realize that they're stronger than they thought they were. And that's really amazing. Your work's amazing in that way, and I'd love to hear more about it. And the people in the social world, all these social entrepreneurs that I'm meeting and heads of charities, so many of them are there and doing great work because they've suffered.
Yeah. I would say, honestly, I definitely know the power of people. And so I reverse engineered imposter syndrome, survivor's remorse, abandonment, rejection, all of the things that had been labeled on me, because I did make it out, because there's been miracles in my life that have happened. I equated that to the books of the Bible. And I realized that the Bible, not to get religious, but is one of the most influential texts in the world. It's a book of testimonies. And when you know the power of your testimony, and you have so many of them, now you feel chosen. It feels, I would die for my beliefs. Literally, I know that being trafficked, my trafficker isn't behind bars. This was $1 billion industry. This was very, very powerful people. I could be found. Maybe one day somebody that I'm dismantling, we're working together with a team of people here, a small team, but we're building it out to be able to fight the mob, to be able to fight, right? So it's like, I know the risk. It's calculated. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, they were willing to die for what it is that they wanted to do, which was legacy. So I've attached that to my name, to my cause, and then I sacrifice. So the level of what you're going to get out of it is what you put into it. So I've sacrificed things like monetary gain of property, estates, cars, nice things, all these purses, and I work and reinvest it back into myself so I can continue to do this work. It's a sacrifice. I'm married.
Sure.
That's the little form of what makes me do this work, and why. When was that thing that was like, I'm going to do this no matter what? It's my purpose. I found that early on.
That's so beautiful. I always feel like it's faces that move me the most, because when you really look deeply into someone and let them look deeply into you, when you're not afraid to be vulnerable, when you're not afraid to, be at the level of whoever you're speaking with and just being comfortable with that, you see yourself in the other person. And you see yourself in your own experience too. But you see yourself in the other person and you think, wow, like how could people just entertain themselves to death and not want to take a stand, make a difference, change the world? I think that, someday science will figure it out. We're all so deeply connected, much more than we ever know. When we don't help, we're hurting ourselves. Whether you want to call it karma, whatever you want to call, but it's really when you realize that we are all the same, we're all equal, and we all deserve to support and love each other. That's a transformational way of thinking. And there's a whole new generation coming up that actually believes this a lot more deeply. When I was in high school, it was all about, who got the first fancy car, or who they were dating, or, like what part of town did you live in, and it's a little different now. Even when I work with, young people, call them Gen Z, or whatever you want. There's a different level of acceptance towards others on average, and also a desire to really make a difference in the world, as opposed to just profit personally, which encourages me tremendously. Well, I want to just step aside into a slightly different conversation for a couple of minutes too, Craig, and let you maybe ask you. So you have had a lot of experience and met a lot of people in your travels that are making impact, from very small organizations on the ground to, you know, multinational efforts that are being done. What is it that comes to mind that you might want to share with our audience of people who are or are considering becoming a social entrepreneur about the bigger world of social entrepreneurship, funding, anything? I'm going to let you pick what resonates with you, but I know you have a lot of wisdom from your connections.
So when I was studying psychology, well, I've been speaking for, I guess, 21 years, and my first